Hi everyone, welcome to another Port Jackson Securities webinar. I am your host, Caitlin Chung, and today we have a special guest, David Groberman, the CEO and co-founder of HeraMED. Thank you so much for joining me today, David.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
So today, David will go through a presentation and then we will take questions from the floor. So feel free to submit questions to me whilst he's doing the presentation for the Q&A. So David, would you like to start us off?
Happy to do that. Thank you very much. So hi everybody, and thank you for taking the time to speak with us today. I'm the CEO and co-founder of the company. And as you might already see from some of these images, we are leading the digital transformation of maternity and pregnancy care. And I would like to kick off with a short video that just show you through the basics of our technology and the solution that we're providing. So let me please start with providing some background and basic terminology about what the problem of our sector, the maternity and pregnancy sector, is. So basically today, the standard of care in pregnancy is still very much focused on the physical clinic hospital visits and putting the doctor in the center. The problem is that we don't have enough obstetricians, we don't have enough midwives, and unfortunately, the outcomes of the pregnancy around the world and specifically in the US are getting worse and worse. Another issue is that a lot of the expecting moms are not feeling supported and reassured. They have anxiety issues. They are forced to come into the clinic on an ongoing basis. Low-risk pregnancies, which stands today for about 75 or 80% of the pregnancies, need to go into the clinic or the hospital for about 14 times on average. It starts with once a month, then it moves to once every couple of weeks, and then towards the third trimester, it happens every week. So it requires a lot of their time, attention, efforts. They need to set the meeting, they need to travel, commute, wait in line, and eventually, in the vast majority of cases, it takes more than an hour just to take some of their basic measurements and then wait in line again until the physician, the obstetrician, can see them. They see them for only a few minutes and they're getting sent back home. The problem is that the system is reactive. It's waiting for something to happen. Now, these 14 visits is only for low risk. If you think about high-risk pregnancies, which today stands for about 20–25% of the cases, it goes up to 25, 30, and even 50 physical meetings at the hospital and at the clinic. In numbers, the problem from a financial perspective is very substantial, and these are only the figures that demonstrate the complications of pregnancy, not even considering the staff cost, the hospital floor cost, and so forth. But you can see that just in the US, if we look just at the preterm birth on the right, the cost for the system is over $26 billion. And obviously, if you take it to the global calculation, the numbers are much, much more significant. And then we come to HeraMED solution. So we're providing a disruptive technology that takes it out of the hospital into the homes. So it's very much focused on the expecting mom, putting her in the center. It's a proactive approach, which is not just waiting for a certain complication or for problems to appear, rather than a continuous assessment of the risk associated with the pregnancy. So it all starts, as we can see here in the left, and I'm hoping that you can see my cursor here. In the left side, we can see what is the experience for the user, the expecting mom. At the center of the technology, and I'm hoping you can see my screen, I'm gonna just pop it in to see myself, but we have this device. This is the device that sits in the core of our technology that we have designed and manufactured. And the idea around this device is the ability to capture the most crucial measurements for fetal well-being and pregnancy assessment, and that's the fetal heart rate. I'll get back to that in a second in one of the next slides. But throughout working with our clinical partners around the world, Ramsay Health here in Australia, Sheba Hospital, who is the largest provider for women's and children's health in Israel, and the Mayo Clinic, who's considered by many the #1 hospital in the world and located in the US, we realized that in order to really be able to replace most of the visits and take it from the hospital to the home, we need to incorporate much more measurements and analysis, providing the physician and the obstetrician with really a deep understanding on the situation and the health of the baby and the mother. So we've added additional components like a connected smart blood pressure cuff, scales to assess the weight, glucometer in case of gestational diabetes or if there's a concern about the sugar levels, and then a variety of digital tools that track the mood, depression, symptoms, and surveys that today it all occurs at the hospital physically by paper and pencil, and it's all been digitalized. If I'll switch back here, so you can see my smartphone screen. Let me just open that. And this is actually the way that the expecting mom experiences the app. So what you see here is that you are able to take the fetal heart rate and the blood pressure and weight and all the other stuff that we just mentioned. But the way that it actually works is that she's getting each and every week a weekly task list, a to-dos list that is actually prescribed to her personally by her healthcare provider. So the one that is deciding on what's going to happen each week, how many measurements, what will be the content that is going to be delivered to her on a weekly basis is the physician. And we have a dedicated educational, very rich educational library that is by the Mayo Clinic, as you can see here. And we also added many educational materials that are Australian oriented. And you can just visualize here on my screen that I've done the task for this week to read a specific content. If I'm being asked to measure my blood pressure, and in this case it's a manual one, but usually we're providing a completely connected smart solution. So I can enter the numbers, I can add a reading, and I've done my task for the week. You can see here already that there's a automatic alert triggered by the system that was defined by the physician that in case of a relatively high blood pressure, there is something that I need to do. So they don't necessarily need to call their physician or the midwife concerning any kind of a measurement. What they're actually being alerted to, it's automatic by the system. There are certain additional steps of escalation before there needs to be an involvement of the midwife or the physician. I'll go back to the platform. So this has been the user experience. Now it all exists in the cloud. We have a medical cloud that is GDPR and HIPAA compliant. And then on the other side of of the equation of the platform, we provide a dashboard, a professional dashboard that is being managed by the midwife or the nurse or the obstetrician. If I now jump to the additional screen, you can see a real world. This is actually the system. Obviously, I'm on a demo environment. These are not real patients, but you can see how the system operates. And it has been designed in close collaboration with our clinical and medical partners to make it as effective as possible from a staff time perspective. So the daily routine of the professional staff is going through the to-do list that you can see here. We have integrated a kind of a light green, yellow, and red traffic light and model in which every one of these readings is getting the right tab, and then it initiates a specific task for the midwife or the obstetrician to take care of. Now, if they want to, they can go to the entire list of patients, and this is, for example, a demo patient that is me. And each patient, you can see all the measurements that they've done. You can see the fetal heart rate, the maternal heart rate, the blood pressure, the weight, the count movement, and so forth. You can move from a list visual to visual that is, let me just move it here, that is graphic, and you can do all that in real time. All the measurements are being uploaded to the system, and you can see everything here. If you can see, I've just done the blood pressure as we saw that, 2nd of May, just right now, and it got a yellow label, which was defined by the physician as something that requires their attention. Sorry. Okay. And now we're back on the presentation. So the last component that I will speak about right now is the ability to conduct telehealth consultations. So within the same platform, we also embedded a full telehealth solution, including chat and audio and video. So with the same platform, providing a seamless experience for the expecting moms as well as the providers, you can initiate a telehealth consultation, a scheduled one or an immediate one, and you are actually reviewing the patient data on the same system to do a telehealth consultation. So basically, our goal is to deliver value in 3 main categories. The first one will be increased satisfaction by the expecting mom, providing them with reassurance and peace of mind that they're being taken care of. It's maybe a good point to explain that the system is hybrid, meaning there's a lot of technology involved, but the patients know, or the expecting moms know, that there's always a human being out there watching them 24/7 based on their readings and their measurements, and can always respond if they need it. Obviously, the convenience in terms of saving time, saving money, not taking days off from work, not needing to travel and commute and park and waiting in line for physical meetings, and they have the support whenever they need it. From an outcome perspective, so we have early detection of complications, and we have some papers and research that we already can demonstrate and show that we were able, through the system, the healthcare providers were actually able to analyze and diagnose complications much earlier compared to the today's standard of care. We're reducing the stress and the depression, which eventually translates to a better pregnancy and better outcomes of the pregnancy. Adherence to the guidelines, which is extremely important, meaning there are educational material, there are guidelines which requires them to do the specific tests, and you can actually monitor and review. Let me jump back for a minute here. If we look at this specific patients on the to-dos, then you actually can see, sorry, on the care plan, you can actually see what the level of compliance is this week. This week, in green are the completed tasks. We have 43% of the completed tasks, The blue ones are those that need to be completed this week. And if we move to previous weeks, you can see each of these patients, what were the compliance rate for the previous week. And last thing is the cost effectiveness of the solution. So we're reducing and replacing these clinics visit with virtual visits. I have some calculation slides about that later on. Optimizing the virtual visits themselves, making them as effective and as short as possible. You're reducing the cost of complication as indicated previously, and absence from work. At the core of the technology, we have the HeraMED device, which we mentioned previously. It's a medical device, FDA approved, CE approved, TGA approved, which has proven itself to be as accurate. I'm jumping to the next slide. As accurate and as effective as a professional monitor. What you can actually see here is a result of multiple clinical trials. We've just released the results today of the second clinical trial conducted at Joondalup Health Campus in WA, part of Ramsay Health. And here you can see in the black, you can see the line that is generated, the fetal heart rate by the Philips device, who is a professional device that cost around $10,000 US and operated only by obstetricians and midwives at the hospital. And on top of that, in the blue, you can see the line of our HeraMED device measuring the fetal heart rate, and you can see that it's practically the same. Here on the lower line, this is the maternal heart rate, and in red, you can see the HeraMED maternal heart rate, which is also very, very accurate. In terms of the way that the technology works from a fetal heart rate analysis, so in low-risk pregnancies, in many cases, you need to do shorter term measurements for 1 to 5 minutes, and we're the only device in the world that enables in a very cost-effective and very user-friendly way, allows the expecting mom to do that by herself, the layperson without any prior experience, do the measurement from home. But then if there is any kind of a high risk or a complication or a concern, with a very simple attachment, you can put the device, attach it to the expecting mom's belly, and do a full professional non-stress test of about 20 to 30 minutes, which the physicians might need in order to have an in-depth understanding of the health of the baby. We have partners around the world. I think I kind of mentioned some of the names. Mayo Clinic is currently completing a clinical trial, and we're hoping to soon start a commercial pilot with them. In Sheba Hospital in Israel, the largest hospital in Israel, we're currently completing a pilot and a clinical trial. We have a commercial agreement with Joondalup Health Campus, part of Ramsay Health here in Australia. We have multiple discussions in Europe. And the last partner that I'll mention is Pediatrics Mednex Group in the US. They are the largest provider for women's and children health in the US, and they cover approximately 20 to 25% of the births in the US. Currently, we have a paid pilot, which is completing, and we're hoping that that will develop to the next level of commercial partnership. These are some of the results and the feedback received from the Joondalup Health Campus success. We started with a clinical trial. We moved to a paid pilot that was for about 6 months, involving 100 expecting moms or 100 licenses. We'll get to the business model in a minute. And then they moved to a commercial agreement for 1 year at this point of 1,200 licenses. We believe and hope that that will expand into a larger number of licenses. They cover about 35 to 4,000, 4,003 or 3,500 births a year, and we're also in discussions about a 3-year contract. You can see the current adoption rates. We immediately, when we moved from the pilot stage and started working very closely, we've moved to a pace of about 70 to 80 new expecting moms every week. And we just passed the 500 users, active users just in Joondalup Health Campus, and we have more than 6,000 data points in terms of readings of the different measurements that you saw previously. This is the success story and the results of the pilot that we've done in the US. You can see some of the statements done by their clinical lead, Dr. Sandosh Pandipiti. And obviously the satisfaction has been very high from both the expecting mom as well as the physicians. As mentioned here earlier, we were able, or the medical staff were able to have early detection of complications, in this case hypertensive in week 25, in which in conventional health will probably take at least 10 additional weeks until they can have this detection. They've gathered more than 2.5 data points in terms of measurements on an ongoing continuous basis compared to the conventional care, and they also been able to reduce dramatically the number of office visits while they can provide the same level or even a superior level of care. All these indications and statements are from our users, from pediatrics in this case. Some of the cost effectiveness analysis. So basically we, in a very conservative way, I can say that we are able to reduce at least 47% of the medical and professional staff time. A traditional session with a physical meeting at the clinic or the hospital usually takes about 60 minutes, and that's just from the point that the expecting mom started the process, not even measuring the time that it took her to reach the hospital and wait in line. And if you compare it to what happened in our system with the virtual system, with the virtual solution, it goes down to about 10 minutes of a virtual health. And I remind again, it's while providing the same level of health and care, if not better than that. From a cost perspective, it obviously depends how exactly you calculate that. And we decided at this point to focus only on one vertical of the cost effectiveness, and that's the reduction in preterm births. So if you remember in the opening, one of the opening slides, we talked about from a financial perspective, the most significant challenge when it comes to pregnancy is the cost of preterm births. If you compare a regular low risk birth that was given in week 40 or 39, the average US numbers are about 7,500 to 10,000 US dollars, while the average cost for a preterm birth, and it obviously depends on which week was the preterm birth and so forth, but the average is about $75,000, and it goes up to about 150 and even 200,000 US dollars. So according to multiple calculations, which are based not only on our information, rather than a lot of analysis and other clinical research conducted on implementing virtual and telehealth, we are able to reduce, and again, these are very humble and conservative numbers, up to about 20% of the preterm births. If you do some calculation and you take it on a wider population base, meaning it's not the reduction of the 75K, it's the reduction of the average between the normal pregnancies that are in the regular, not preterm births, and combine it with the preterm births, you get to a point that on average you can save as much as $1,400 US dollars per pregnancy. The business model is that we today consider ourselves to be a software company. The solution is based on some hardware, and specifically the HeraMED device, which we license to the hospital. So there is an upfront fee for the device, which cover the cost of the device with some humble margins. But then most of the revenue is generated by a SaaS, software as a service based fee, per patient per month. So on average, you can think about it as if it's about $50 US dollars per patient per month. And if we do a very rough calculation about what will be the average per pregnancy, we're talking roughly about $500 to $600 US dollars per pregnancy. Our solution expands beyond the pregnancy to a postpartum stage as well. So the average use of the platform is about 10 months. And we're working through our business model is B2B2C. We're not marketing or having direct commercial contact with the expecting mom. We're licensing the technology directly to the hospitals and the care providers and the insurance companies, and they are responsible for bringing their audience of expecting mom, prescribing them to the platform, onboarding them, and making sure that and they're providing them with a service. So we're working through hospitals and clinic, through maternity health groups, through digital health platforms, and insurance companies. So from a value proposition perspective, we really are providing end-to-end solution that it drives all the stakeholders in the industry. We have the values for the expecting moms in terms of the convenience, the peace of mind, the empowerment, and obviously the outcomes of the pregnancy. The clinical staff enjoys the patient satisfaction, reduction in the burden on the clinical staff in terms of their time and attention, and obviously also the improved outcomes. Hospitals have operational efficiency. They can use the same staff to have more clients or potentially reduce some of their staff and optimize their workflow. Customer loyalty is extremely important, so they have brand awareness and they can actually engage with their expecting moms. Pregnancy is considered a very interesting window in the life of a young couple, in which both the hospitals and the insurance companies really want to be engaged and perceived as supporters of the pregnant couple, because then usually you have them for life. Employers, in terms of the US, the market is very different, and a lot of the employers are the ones that are responsible for the health of their patients. It's very different if you compare it to the system here in Australia and in Israel, where I am located. But employers that are responsible in the US for their staff's health see financial savings, employee experience, and enhanced health, which eventually translates to satisfied employees that want to come back to work earlier. And we obviously have some significant benefits to insurance companies as well, with decreasing the overall cost of the pregnancy and specifically the complications, and having the ability to manage the pregnancies proactively. So in kind of a summary, the company is currently located in a transition point or inflection point, with really starting to see some commercial adoption. Both the platforms, the HeraCare and the HeraMED device, have the proven technology and the clinical superiority, which was proven by multiple clinical trials. And we are already collaborating with some of these leading clinical partners around the world that I mentioned earlier: Ramsay in Australia, Sheba in Israel, Mayo Clinic and Mednex or Pediatrics in the US. We have already completed 2 very substantial clinical trials here in Australia, and we're waiting for the final results of the Mayo Clinic clinical trial, Sheba clinical trial, and much more. So that provides another layer of proof and support about the clinical effectiveness, but also the cost and staff effectiveness of the solution. And we have just recently, late January, we signed a full commercial agreement with JHC in WA, meaning that we now have validation and proof that our commercial model works. I'll put a stop here, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, great. I'm really impressed by like how much you really changed the lives of mums. So your software is really amazing. We have a few questions come in, so I'll get started on that. First one is any updates on the clinical trial results with the Mayo Clinic?
So the one thing that I would like to use this platform to explain our viewers and our shareholders is that when you're a company that is doing business to business and you're working with regular commercial partners, then both businesses have a very strong interest to get the word out there as quickly as possible, and to create some news around the success stories. When you're working with clinical partners, there's a completely different layer and level of compliance that you need to you have to take into consideration. So the Mayo Clinic is considered the #1 hospital in the world, and their procedures are very, very strict. We are expecting to see the results in the near future, but on the other hand, I would very much appreciate everybody's patience. We are not able, unfortunately, Mayo Clinic just don't allow us to share any internal information from the pilots. We don't really have the data in our hands, only they have it. We are providing them with all the support and the help that is possible, and we do have some indications that the results will be satisfying, but we have to follow their processes and their timelines, and there's nothing more that we can do in order to expedite them. On the other hand, we have just released earlier today, the results of the clinical trial at Joondalup Health Campus, which, by the way, from a professional perspective, is at least as strict as the Mayo Clinic. We are expecting the results of the Sheba trial quite soon, and we also just released about 2 or 3 weeks ago the results of the commercial pilot with the Mednex US group. So I think there's a lot of information already in the hands of investors, and I appreciate and understand that everybody wants to have more information and more results. Just be aware that we're doing our very best to do the processes as quickly as possible.
Yeah. And for those people that came in late, feel free to submit questions in case you missed that. Okay, we have another question. Can you clarify the commercial agreement with JHC and the fee per license they receive? The announcement on the 21st of January with 400 licenses per quarter at total of 220,000 for the year is difficult to understand. How much are we expecting to receive for year 2?
Okay, so again, one thing that I would like to clarify is that we're not always able to expose all the numbers. The other side is not always willing and happy if we give the exact numbers. So the best that we could do is just to give a comprehensive summary of what is the deal size. But if you can think about it, and I would like to clarify that the agreement was signed for 1 year. There are ongoing discussions about expansion of the current agreement and signing a 3-year contract. So I would like to clarify that based on the satisfaction levels that I guess that you can all see from the announcements and this presentation, we definitely believe and very confident that they will expand the contract and sign a 3-year contract. But I want to clarify that it hasn't been yet signed. And if you do the relatively simple math, which again, I'm not allowed to go into all the exact numbers, but because it's a gradual per month licensing agreement, which starts with 400, then on the second quarter, you have an additional 400, then you have 800. So if you do this process, by the end of the year, we will reach a full deployment of the 1,200 licenses. And because it's a monthly fee, then the calculation is basically an average of these quantities. Starting from year 2, what we're hoping and we believe we will see is that the payment will be for the entire 1,200 licenses and potentially more, doubled by the figure that is the $50. I have to say that the Joondalup Health Campus has been extremely supportive, early adopters, and we're also doing all the clinical trials with them, basically with no additional cost. So we consider them to be strategic partners, and because of that, we are also giving them a sweet deal with some enterprise level discounts, but basically the numbers are still within the $50 range per month per user.
Thank you for that. Can you tell me more about the Spanish tender?
Yeah, well, the Spanish tender is a government tender for the Barcelona city or state, and government tenders have their own pace. It's a much larger deal than just the HeraCare technology. That company that is actually competing in the tender is about to provide comprehensive services, which includes the staff and the care management and in-hospital services on top of the HeraCare technology, which will be for the home users. So it's a very substantial tender. We are definitely an important part of that, but we're not the entire tender. And the nature of these government tenders is that it just takes more time. Once we have it's live, it's happening. We are being asked some questions. We are delivering them all the clinical evidence that we continue to get from our other trials around the world, which definitely makes their decision easier. But we have to realize the fact that, again, they're dealing with the government and it's going to take a bit more time. I don't have a time frame, to be very honest. I don't want to create any expectations that it's going to happen next week or next month. All I can say is that it's live and kicking, and we're hoping to be able to provide any kind of an update once we hear that.
Yeah, okay. I'll just take a few more questions. Company cash burn and expected capital needed for remaining year and beyond.
So what I'm allowed to say at this point is that we're burning about $300K US dollars a month, and we have about $2.7, $2.8 million US left in the bank. And we're hoping to be in a situation in which we need to expand more because we win some contracts and then we need to deliver on them. But at this point, this is the current burn rate, and we want to keep it as tight as possible.
Yeah. Do the hospitals and the clinics you work with charge the mums that use your products?
That's a very, very good question. So it highly depends on the geography and the nature of the partner. So there are places in which it's a premium service that the hospitals and the clinics charge a premium fee from the expecting mom. There are places in which it's completely subsidized or covered by the hospital or by the insurance. I can tell you that I just came back from a 2 or 3 days in Perth, visiting the current hospital in which the system is deployed. And over there, or here generally in Australia, after COVID or during COVID, there are new indications and new coverage from the insurance companies that are covering telehealth. So remote consultation and virtual health with our system and the ability to obviously conduct this virtual health based on the information that was gathered by the expecting mom at home are at least partially covered by the insurance. At this point, what we know is that the hospitals that we're working with are not charging the expecting moms an extra on that, but definitely that's also a model that is definitely can happen.
Yeah, okay. And last question, are there any other countries in the pipeline you're looking to expand into commercially?
So we want to, still a small company, and we want to maintain a very focused approach. So currently we're working in the countries that we believe we have the cutting edge and we have the advantage, and we already have some infrastructure and relationship in these countries. Specifically, I'm talking about Australia, I'm talking about Israel, and I'm talking about the US. Yes, we have a tender and good relationship in Spain, as we mentioned, and we do have some interesting opportunities in Germany, but we really want to focus on delivering on some of these opportunities first in these three major markets, who are US, Israel, and Australia, and then I think we'll be ready to expand. If we're done with the questions, I would like to still use the remaining time and just share a video of one of the physicians. We have quite a few of those, but I'll give you the local angle. So I'll show you a physician from Australia talking about our system. Let me know that you can see my screen. And here it is.
So my name's Dr. Kim Jones. I am a specialist obstetrician gynaecologist who works in the northern suburbs of Perth. My background is that I'm also an obstetric and gynaecology sonologist, and I work across all fields of obstetrics and gynaecology. My role at Joondalup Health Campus within our department, which is the Department of Obstetrics and Gynaecology, is that I'm the clinical lead for antenatal clinic, and I've also taken on the clinical lead role when it's been working with the HeraMED group, and it's something that I've been quite passionate about. So Joondalup's obstetric care has not changed for years, and I think we can establish that in Australia before COVID. It hadn't changed since it was probably the 1950s. What we've managed to do is provide the patient a really innovative, interactive service, which we think also has improved our safety netting of patients. So throughout COVID, a lot of the clinics have now moved to telephone, not telehealth, but just telephone calls to their patients. But we've been able to offer them the HeraBeat, which has enabled us to also keep an eye on the mum through the questions that they're sent on the weekly basis, and that includes not only medical information as in their weight and their blood pressure, but also how their mental health's going. And as we know, that's been quite important during COVID, but certainly during the antenatal care, that's what we've noticed, and quite early on in the piece when we've had a look at the data, that patients do go through what appears to be sort of a natural sort of drop in their mood. So we're able to find those ladies early and adopt a more aggressive approach to sort of getting on top of this. Look, it's been great for our department. We have completely changed how we do antenatal care with the help of the HeraBeat and the HeraCare system itself. So, you know, it has taken less time for the doctors to be organised, so we've actually can have more free time for other patients. And I think too, the safety netting of being able to see the traces on the babies. As you know, we have produced a paper already that shows that the comparison to a CTG is over 97%. So we can feel quite comfortable that when we see a trace of the baby, it's truly reflective of what's going on with the mother at the time. So, you know, being connected, it's been great for the mums. They've also been very impressed with the fact that we're now fitting in with their lifestyle. People are busy, they're having to take time off from work to come into clinic, whereas now they can have clinic at home or at work, not having to take hours off work or, you know, find a babysitter. So I think there's I could talk you all day about the advantages of having this system in other hospitals.
Okay.
Thank you. Is there anything else from your presentation you'd like to share?
No, I think we're done.
Okay, well, thank you so much.
Happy if you have any additional questions, just shoot me an email. I'm now here in Sydney, then going to Brisbane, then to Melbourne. If anyone is attending and in one of these cities and wants to meet in person, I'm hoping to find some time for that.
Okay, well, thank you so much. I'm sure our audience learned a lot. I certainly learned a lot about your company, and it's so interesting. And yeah, if anyone sends me questions, I'll also forward it to David for you guys. So thank you so much, and thank you so much, David, for joining me today.
Appreciate it very much. Thank you. It was lovely.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.